Here's the truth. Most Americans, most people are good people. If you ever wonder why we get all these types of false discussions, false debates, like whether we should teach critical race theory, etc., 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 it's all about keeping the population uninformed, keeping the population ignorant. If people are inherently good, they also inherently want to make things right. No one's perfect. Nobody is perfect. No culture is nothing is perfect. Good people always want to atone and make things right. Tiffany Cross on the Cross Connection, she had a special today. She's on Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where that entire community, a vibrant, very well-educated, very vibrant part of Tulsa, Oklahoma, black part of Tulsa, Oklahoma, that was striving, was not only massacred, hundreds were not only killed, but airplanes dropped bombs to destroy this 30-something block area that was striving. In this one segment, I think Tiffany Cross and the panel, including the mayor, did a great job in pointing out just how things are and making the case for reparation, making the economic and moral case. Take a listen to this.
With you specifically, the Bynum family, I'm sure you know, enslaved nearly 1,000 people. And you inherited that wealth from the family, where the African Americans here in the community had their wealth taken from them. So when you say no cash payouts, I think people look at it and say, well, wow, you inherited wealth, you inherited your position in life because of enslaving people who look like me. How do you reconcile saying, yeah, but that was then, and we don't owe you anything for that now?
Because you're asking me about reparations for an event that was a criminal act 100 years ago.
Right, but something that your family benefited from, the system of enslavement, of systemic racism. So can you imagine how the descendants of the enslaved look at your position in life compared to their own, and hear you say, well, no, cash payouts make people uncomfortable. I assume you mean the white people of Tulsa. And people...
No. What we have found is that at the end of the 1860 slave schedule, Mayor G.T. Bynum's family, the descendants of the first Bynums that came to Jamestown in 1616, they had a total of 931 enslaved people. As a descendant, my family only had 56 years to build our wealth from 1865 to 1921. His family had from 1666, when we have confirmed, slave involvement in his family, all the way to 1865.
Other thing that's important to note is the history of mayors in his family
Absolutely.
as well. So let's also be clear that there is an economic and a political connection to the continued oppression and the privilege for white folks, right? So as we sit in the heart of Greenwood right now, we're sitting in an area where black people don't own any of the building. In 1921, we owned this entire area. We don't own anything here now. That's something that he could resolve through policy. That's something that must be resolved through policy, and it needs to happen at the local level, at the state level, at the federal level. They're not even willing to do that. Set up a commission here that raised $30 million, and they can't find a penny of that to go to the survivors or to even ensure economic development that benefits black people.
I mean, the problem here is a fundamental moral one. The people are seeking absolution from history. And when you seek absolution from the worst atrocities of history, and we know this well, what you do is facilitate the replication of those atrocities in the present. So it's not coincidental that we're having this conversation about Tulsa and having this conversation about January 6th. Or we could say this conversation about Charlottesville, or this conversation about Charleston, or this conversation about El Paso, or this conversation about Pittsburgh. That the vector of hatred moves through history and is transmitted by denial.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about this, it's presumed that we're coming from a critical place. We're coming from a place of salvation in the effort to make sure that we don't see these actions repeated ad infinitum.
Professor Cobb ends it on the moral issue, and I think it is so important. And where he talks about not telling history is the vector that hate uses to keep on going. It is so true. And the fear of many on the right is that as we teach these different realities of who we were, that we start to erode the fallacies that we believed for too long that did not only hurt people of color, did not only sap the wealth of people of color, but that a few families, a few powerful families took advantage not only of people of color, specifically black people and others, but in doing so, used the average white person as a tool, simply giving them nothing, giving them no parts of the share of wealth either, in as much as it was much more than that afforded that of the people of color, but using that strangulation of wealth of the many by allowing them that false belief that at least I am not them. The fear today is that everyone except the powerful who wants to control the history, the message, and the economy, everyone else, they're fearful, will realize that they are the them. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.